The issue I choose to discuss is how an organisation's purpose, beliefs, values, incentives, and in turn way of governance and management influence its financial status. The Sydney Cross City Tunnel. We are not informed of either the CKI or the New South Wales Government's beliefs and values, but we can have an understanding of what these may be from their method of governance and management. Although the CKI had a lot of experience in infrastructure in Hong Kong and China, they had minimal experience in Australia. CKI was very motivated to expand, being driven to really get involved in the Australian market. Their intentions for the CCT project were to get their feet on the ground, beginning to earn substantial revenue in Australian infrastructure projects. These intentions may have been one of the most detrimental factors that resulted in the failure of the project. They overforecast the estimates for traffic flow thoroughly, and being blinded by the prospect of big profits, they predicted the best case scenario and didn't prepare for anything less. Their naivety to the situation could be as a result of the fact that they were used to the mindset and demand for roading in China and Hong Kong, and from their residents, but they did not forecast for the attitudes of Australians. They did not take human and other environmental and economic factors into account, which should not have been overlooked. The fact that the CCM was unsuccessful in the development of the project supports the argument that the CKI's financial status is a reflection of its intentions. It could also be argued that the financial failure of the project was by fault of the New South Wales Government. The New South Wales Government was very set on their debt-reducing plan. It did not consider the people's opinions and their budgets for transport. Citizens became very unhappy with the way the government was dealing with the project, and that they were offering no support, and could have reduced the cost of travelling through the tunnel for citizens. These facts show that although the government's purpose is to serve the people, often bureaucracy and power clouds government officials' views on what they are trying to achieve at times. The receivership of the project provides support that the government's incentives did not allow for them to thoroughly analyse the implications of the public-private partnership they had set up, resulting in financial failure, unfortunately. The New South Wales Government should have taken responsibility for some of the costs of the tunnel, subsidising the prices. Whether forecasts of the necessity of the tunnel in the first place were correct can also be questioned, as citizens were happy to continue to keep using congested roads rather than using the new tunnel in order to avoid tolls, which must mean that the roads were not that congested in the first instance, or people would be willing to pay in order to reduce petrol costs, as well as time, of course. Both of these organisations may argue that it was irresponsible decisions on behalf of the other party that led to the receivership. The New South Wales Government could fairly argue that their intention was still to serve the people, but it intended to do so by reducing its debt. They did not realise that attempting to reduce it so significantly without putting any support into the tunnel would have such a negative result on citizens' attitude toward the project. And the fact that the government did not contribute to the funding of the project couldn't be predicted. Many of the citizens would have been unaware of the government's debt-reducing intentions, as all they saw was a substantial toll price and lack of government support. The government needs to take into account that they know what they're doing, but citizens do not, and they only see what's happening with their tax-paying money. Communication here needs to be clearer. It could also be said that the financial failure of the project has nothing to do with the calculated revenue. It was out of either organisation's control, and it had nothing to do with the organisation's beliefs and incentives. The financial position of Australians, and therefore their leniency to pay tolls, could not have been accurately predicted when the project was initiated, as it is not possible to know what the markets are doing in 2 years into the future, which in turn would be the financial state of Sydney citizens, and therefore how inclined they would be to pay for tunnel tolls. There will also always be uncertainty to how people will respond to a project like this. Even the most successful entrepreneurs still have ideas that don't take off when they predict it will. Clearly, accounting played a huge role in the evaluation of the issue that forced the project into receivership. The ACCT. The ACCT has proven to be a very successfully structured private non-for-profit organisation, having complete devotion to its clients' needs and priorities. Management and board members are from the affiliated companies that the organisation is serving, which means that it is in their best interest that the company is successful as possible, which has proved to be a very prosperous design. This also shows the organisation's compassion for people in the workforce, an appreciation that the organisation exists to serve their needs, not for making a profit out of them. These people working in hazardous environments are the people that should be listened to, as they know the needs within the workplace. They know the needs within the workplace and rehabilitation. And often communication between business managers and workers is a very significant issue, which in turn can cause sizable unnecessary costs. As outlined in my previous video about the ACHS, this management arrangement resulted in consistent success with the organisation, especially in the financial downturn. Hyman's tried his absolute best to keep staff employed, which meant that the ACHS managed to really lead the market when the economy turned around, already having a smooth team of employees without needing to hire vast numbers of staff. This genuine business approach resulted in the success of the company, consequently dominating the market by over 50%. This supports the argument that the organisation's genuine intentions have had a positive influence on the organisation's finances. However, it could also be argued that the genuine approach has had a negative effect on the profitability of the organisation. Support of this is that the organisation has too many resources and not enough demand. It is now forced with the decision of either merging with another organisation or having potentially serious financial consequences in the future. The organisation's genuine approach to reducing accidents in the workplace has been so effective it has reduced business for the organisation, hence the lack of demand, which supports an argument that a genuine approach does not positively weight finances. This is quite significant, as it could result in a serious downsizing of the organisation. But in this instance, since the organisation is non-for-profit and is aimed to reduce workplace accidents, it confirms it's actually successful. Accounting practices were necessary to be able to notify management of how relevant this issue is and how it could affect the organisation negatively in the future, in addition to the savings that it could make from the merger. The Ministry of Social Development New Zealand. The MSD is quite a different case than the other two, as it does not have control over its finances. They are given by the government, which makes it quite a hard case to unpick. Unfortunately, the MSD is a bit of a band-aid to temporarily fix a problem, making it difficult to ever be anything other than a very chaotic, problematic system to have to organise. It would appear on paper that the organisation is very much committed and genuinely focused on serving the people of New Zealand. As Peter Hughes states, this is the absolute intention to reduce the number of people on the unemployment benefit. He intends to do so by removing hurdles that may be preventing them from getting jobs. We must look at the success of the organisation on how reductions have been made of those on the benefits. Looking at this, we can see that the number of unemployed reduced by 30% from 2001 to 2006. With these figures, it would appear that the argument that the Ministry's restructure to the system has been very effective, and in turn their financial status is a result of its incentives. However, a consideration that needs to be made is whether the success of this reduction in unemployment is actually present, or whether it has simply been moved to another area. For instance, if it has encouraged more women to have children and go on the solo mother benefit. When you look at how effective the organisation is from the public point of view, you would hear a substantially different response. A majority of the citizens of New Zealand would tell you that they see a lot of bureaucracy in the MSD system. It appears that the organisation is constantly being restructured in an attempt to solve the previous issues. After this restructuring, the system works out well for a while, but after not very long, issues begin to arise. Most of the public is under the impression that there is a lot of hierarchy, and with many of the high-level management staff being after power and status. And what the citizens of New Zealand are left to deal with is a chaotic system of wins, which they avoid with great speed. It is inefficient and is widely known that by most people that to go into wins will take a substantial amount of time out of your day. But getting enlisted on the unemployment benefit takes very little effort in comparison to getting a job. This alters the argument that although the organisation has had good intentions, these intentions have been lost in the chaos of bureaucracy and have simply resulted in the movement of finances from one field to another. In conclusion, the three projects are all quite different. They present three very different cases. However, some correlations between them can be seen. I feel quite strongly that moral values and incentives behind an organisation determine how financially successful it is in the long run. If an organisation looks after its clients, while being smart and premeditating problems without taking shortcuts, it will be successful. I can see how different opinions on why an organisation has or has not been successful financially. That other factors may affect the financial successfulness of a business, such as forces of nature or unpredictable opinions of people. I have come to appreciate and understand the argument that an organisation needs some necessary evil to make it successful, and that competition and drive for profit is necessary in order to make an organisation effective. It can be seen in the case of the ACHS, who has put itself out of some business due to the success of its prevention of accidents, and how it could be viewed that in unsuccessful cases such as the CCT, the reason behind the failure was of uncontrollable or unpredictable factors. Accounting is so relevant to monitor these factors, as we need to know how a company's actions affect the finances of an organisation. When I reflect back to the start of the assignment, I was not expecting to develop in the way I think and discuss with myself when posed with conflicting situations, in accounting especially, but in life in general also. I realise when I reflect on this that I have learnt and developed a lot. The questions designed for the assignment had me questioning things that I found difficult and frustrating, until I learnt that what was trying to be achieved was to develop the way I apply myself to situations. I liked being able to choose my own issue to question, as it meant that I could analyse something that I was very interested and passionate about, which meant that I could put more into the assignment as I really related to it. I was naive to the necessity of human opinion and thought in accounting procedures. The second exam question about how accountants working in organisations involved in developing public services are constantly using interpersonal skills. The level of skills and knowledge of people in managerial positions was not elaborated on to the same extent in the other two cases, but in the ACHS we were told about how the board of directors were made up of 3 directors of affiliated companies, while the other 3 board members were elected by workers of those affiliated companies. These 3 workers were trained on the necessary knowledge needed for understanding financial documents, which reflects on how teams of management can have varying knowledge and skills, but when they come together and discuss and collaborate, they can be very successful. The fact that I had to look at this discussion as a discussion and see the issue from the point of view of other people opened my eyes and made me more understanding and compassionate. When you have an opinion, it is often quite hard to see things from the other person's shoes, as in your mind the answer is so simple and clear. However, when you have to step into someone else's shoes and walk around in them, see where they are coming from, and really try to understand their perception, it somewhat alters your mindset. By encouraging people from different backgrounds and experiences to work together in collaboration, proves very effective in being able to sieve through a large number of problems to come up with an absolute greatest solution. The more diverse people's backgrounds, the more successful this process is, as the greater the number of problems are identified. This is if everyone can compromise and aim to work together efficiently and with respect and understanding, because everyone has something different to contribute, and this results in the greater diversity. Being able to do this and really let go of your point of view is often hard when discussing with another person, depending on how open you are to the other people's opinions. However, the further this is developed, the more likely viable solutions they are able to come up with. I think this is something that is really developed over time. It is not a simple thing to do as a person, and it is something that grows with experience and understanding. If we can grow as people to learn to do this, we will be able to achieve things a lot quicker, with less mess-ups. One exam question that highlights this is question 6b, which talks about how public bodies deliver in certain public services can be described as professional organisations, as they are dominated by particular professionals, which may be educators, medical staff, and engineers. We are asked to discuss the consequences that this may have on the style and form of governance and administration, and how financial difficulties may evolve from this, which can be described as just explained. If organisations are governed and managed by very similar people with a lack of diversity, it's possible that large problems can arise or may not be seen because of the lack of knowledge in different areas, which may very well have been the issue with the CCCM consortium and the RTA partnership. This reflected badly on the company, which will give companies a negative taint in their reputation, not only from the public's eye, but this will also be considered in the future when tendering for jobs. This most definitely is wanted to be avoided by organisations. When you have to discuss with yourself, it is a lot harder. When you have to discuss with yourself, it is in a way harder, and you tend not to do it. Very often people get frustrated as they can't see the other argument. But I found in doing this assignment, I realised how important this is in life in general, and most certainly accounting. So if you can open your eyes to this, it can make you come to decisions much easier and reduce risks if you can really manage to discuss with yourself the pros and cons of situations. If you can learn to do this, not only can you become more accepting and open-minded, not only can you become more accepting and open-minded about people, but you can also get through many situations in life much easier and with much less complications. Another important factor that I already had, but left an impression even further, was the way things can be viewed by someone reading a document or being told something without having experience within an organisation at different levels. From reading the report about the MSD, I had no knowledge of how the MSD runs and operates from the point of view of a citizen. From the point of view of a citizen interacting, I would think that much time and effort goes into the system, that it was well run and all the right intentions were there. But as a New Zealand citizen, seeing the number of people taking advantage of benefits, and as a student, the frustration that I get from attempting to receive my loan, I see a completely different side of the picture. Those in management that may not talk to people on the ground having issues with the system may not be able to understand and find solutions because they won't be able to find these problems or understand them. This is a big positive about the ACHS and how their board members are workers from on the ground, working within companies. Within companies, the organisation is set out to aid. This means they very much have an inside view, not only from what reports about the intentions, but from about intentions behind running the company. These factors, I have become further aware, are incredibly relevant for accounting. It's very necessary to have practical knowledge for having to deal with these situations as an accountant.